Right. Rusty Lake. Where do I even start? For many, Rusty Lake is a video game series, full of puzzles, mystery vibes, and reasons to ask one eternal question. What the f... It currently includes 15 games, with the 16th incoming. Legally speaking, it's an indie game studio, based in the Netherlands, that essentially develops these games. As for me, it's first and foremost a universe, full of riddles, clues, and understatements. And this is the exact reason why it's interesting to theorize on. Unfortunately, not all would agree with me on that. The vast majority of the fanbase would rather prefer ready-made answers, or keeping their conclusions to themselves. My name is Now Here, and I am willing to change that. You are watching Deep Dive into Rusty Lake, a scream of my heart. Throughout this series, I'm going to digest different points of view on the in-game laws and events, their pros and cons, and in the end it's you to decide which one of them to believe. In case I'm missing something out, I'm absolutely glad to hear you out and discuss. So, how did Rusty Lake begin? The season's game starts with choosing a cube, or as the game is saying itself, a memory. At the beginning, they are available only one after another. In the first one, we see a small room with a kitchenette. There's also a grandfather clock, a window, and a blooming tree behind it. A parrot named Harvey is in a cage, and the memory owner is a young woman named Laura. According to her notes, she likely suffers from depression. She's prescribed Prozac, an antidepressant, and a mental health center is recommended to her. Rusty Lake, mental health, and fishing. There are also some oddities. For example, there is no door, like at all. From time to time, we see the memory owner outside. And sometimes, we see a weird ominous shadow instead. Both disappear with no trace. A voice of unnatural tones speaks on the phone. As it was said before, all of this is a memory. And the key moment of this memory is Laura eating Harvey's egg. We see a black moth worm flying out of it. A bad omen. And the symbol of death. And a black cube manifests with them. It's hard to tell whether the moth and the cube were real, whether they were a memory product or just gameplay. But in the future the devs will admit, it all started with Harvey's egg. Using the cube we live the memory. We just need to assemble a photo and light up a fireplace. Let's forget about seasons for a while and address Laura's trip to that mental health center by the lake. She won it in a newspaper contest, 5 years after the egg incident. Currently, we don't know much about this trip, just few sketchy episodes. One of them, however, clearly shows that Laura arrived not alone. The game Harvey's box starts... well, inside the box. Such surprise! A box in cubic shape. And we play as Harvey, Laura's pet. We can even see her shadow all the way through the game. Let's agree on her, since the bird lays eggs. But believe me, in this universe, even a rooster might be capable of that. Outside, we see the wallpaper or familiar room. Inside, among other things, we have boxes of matches, a jar of flies, probably a lure, a Rusty Lake logo spoon, another black egg, probably brought by Harvey, some items from Renee Magritte's paintings, a dead fish, a box of the lake cigars. Why? Oh, a sticker. Moving to Rusty Lake, mental health and fishing. Well, I guess something is clear now. But why is it inside? Long story short, the game is full of surrealism. It consists of puzzles that hardly make sense, and some weird imagery. It's also fair to note a so-called cactus fruit that we will encounter in Seasons. At least it's something similarly looking. Inside, there's a long spiral staircase leading downwards, eventually back into the box. Remarkably, despite the protagonist seems to be a bird brain, she understands well all the situation absurdity and wants to get out, unlike her mistress. But that is a topic for later. By the way, while we were fever dreaming with Harvey, the box has finally reached the lake. There have been changes inside. For example, the egg hatched, and from it, I am not commenting this. And outside, we see walls of some planky cabin. The lake game location, a cabin this time around, looks like a cube too. It's likely a philosophy behind the series as a whole. Literally escape from a cube. But although some other games, just as surreal, seem to take place in the reality, it's possible that the lake in particular is a memory. Just like Seasons. The cabin itself, according to the game's synopsis, is located on a small island. After having gone there presumably on a boat, Laura finds herself the most natural occupation possible. Fishing, that is. It's a fishing cabin after all, and all the gear is at hand. A huge amount of things and events that took place there are difficult, and sometimes even scary to take differently than just a bunch of gameplay elements. A key inside a shrimp, an eyeball sealed in a wall. At some point, Laura catches out a drowned man. By the way, Laura, why the hell did you stab him? Don't you see how bad he is? Oh, an apple. Okay, hands down then. Oh, it's a tree growing out of a fish, and some ritual note involving it. So basically, we have too many convenient coincidences. But I digress. If you finish the ritual from the note with the blue gem, a pentagram appears, the darkness comes, and the familiarly looking shadow crawls out of water and starts to menacingly approach us. By the way, meet a corrupted soul. According to an achievement, the shadows are called exactly that. Huh. Objectively, we didn't know what the soul did to Laura at the end. But judging by the normal behavior throughout the series, nothing good. The end. Or maybe not. Actually, there are two endings. Before the re-release within Cube Escape Collection, the Pentagram ending was followed by a message from the devs. Thank you for playing. You could still change your fate by using a code from Seasons. Yeah, I agree, not the best impersonation. But I digress. That was the very first case of two games interacting with each other. Later it became only more frequent. If we catch out an olive case, entering the code will be offered once more. Nowadays, a hint "Remember the Seasons" addressing the player directly is quite subtle. But before the update, it was speaking of the code bluntly, through breaking the fourth wall. This time, there's a green gem inside. If we place it on the tree, the darkness still comes, the corrupted soul still attacks, but instead of the pentagram, we get a pentagon protecting Laura. The corrupted soul disappears with the world around the cabin, leaving behind a black cube spinning in the white void. Well done, you found the cube and changed your fate, the devs wrote this time. And now, let's get back to Harvey. When she finally arrives to the cabin, someone starts scratching from outside. Later, it's revealed to be a pigeon. After the contact successfully established, it helps her to get out. However, oh, achievement! You died. Just great. By analogy with the lake, the game doesn't end with a corrupted soul attack, and it's possible to defeat it. In order to do that, we only need to launch some fireflies. Light and shadow. Quite symbolic. And further enhancing the lake analogy, the soul leaves the cube behind. The trip to the lake is over. 2 years ago to be precise. But Laura doesn't feel any better. In fact, she feels worse, and the trip could be the reason for that. This second memory of Seasons is about Laura having visions and flashbacks from the lake. Probably because of them she is awake at 4 AM. Or maybe she just wanted to look at the moon. After all, the background music, Gymnopody No. 3 by Eric Satie, is rather comforting. It's so dark outside that the tree is barely visible. Glancing at the moon through a telescope, Laura sees a strangely familiar window, and herself waving behind it. It's possible that it's something more than just a hallucination, since similar lunar reflections are also seen in other games. A moment later, a corrupted soul appears from Laura's behind. The blood is everywhere. The woman is twitching in convulsion. Her face is frozen in the expression of terror, and if we look closer, we can see some more blood on her neck. The weird voice foretells the blood too.
There will be blood.
Laura probably wanted to calm herself down with the favorite song of hers and Harvey's. An extract from Egmont, a Beethoven's overture. Remember that song? Although in Rusty Lake universe, this piece could be written by someone else and bear a different title. Only my favorite song is written on the cassette. In other games we have some different titles, such as Bad Egg Symphony and Harvey's song. From now on we'll call it just that. Unfortunately, it resulted into the tape player jamming the cassette. And very likely into another trauma for Laura, already rather ill. In the end, she decided to burn the tape. Talking about the lake flashbacks, one of them could be a hand crawling from a flower pot. Even though it's not as pale as the one of the drowned that Laura cut out the other time, the blackening lines are the same, unless it's just an asset reuse. A more obvious flashback takes place when Laura bakes a shrimp. I'm tired of asking why. Alive. A shrimp, similar to the one she caught at the lake. In the oven, Laura sees herself, standing knee-deep in the lake. It's quiet. Only a subtle water meandering is heard. Soon, Laura is replaced by another shadow, another corrupted soul. Then it disappears, leaving a black cube behind to float in the air. And we take it. Whether Laura went corrupted for real, or it was just a symbolism, whether she left a cube, or it was just gameplay, whether she took it from flashback, is questionable, just like in spring 1964. The vision ends. Laura assembles another picture. The lake this time. The tape is still burning, and we use the cube to leave the memory. The sky is grey. The leaves on the tree are withered. The abysmal music is playing and blood is everywhere. The voice's prophecy came true. The past is never dead. It's not even past, the voice says this time. On the pinboard there is a new note. I'm afraid I will do something horrible. There's a bloody knife in the cabinet, and Harvey is screaming. With a female voice. She has clearly heard something. Laura! That's it. Never ever again you are getting a knife from me. Besides some familiar imagery and a red forest, we see Ron Burgundy reporting on TV about a woman that was found dead, with no signs of a killer. Nobody knows if the killer even existed, or it was a suicide. The program ends with another black cube. As soon as we grab it, more blood starts excessively dripping from the ceiling. While it's pouring, a corrupted soul with a knife is guaranteed to appear, leading to the window from the other side. Otherwise, it manifests with just a little chance. After finally looking up, we see a giant eye on the chandelier's place, and it's bleeding. But soon enough it closes down, turns back into a chandelier, and the blood is gone. Considering the Paradox game, despite it being released 3 years and 10 other games later, the eye could belong to Laura herself. Long story short, the visions, the surroundings, the broadcast, everything tells that Laura died. What's more, a new assembled card is a funeral one, reflecting the exact date of Laura's death, 12 October 1971. Wait a minute, then who is using the cube we've got from TV? Whose memory is this? Who was watching it and now leaves? It's been 10 years since Laura's death. Her house looks abandoned. Dust is everywhere. The window is boarded up. But don't be fooled. Something mysterious and grand takes place within these walls. Some rusty apparatus of unknown purpose hangs all around the room. Some very peculiar notes are pinned to the board. Cube plus fire equals escape the memory. That corresponds to what we were seeing so far. Blue cube plus fire also equals escape the memory. That's something new. Phone plus fuel equals change the past, and also change the past. This time, we are gathering blueprint pieces that features a cube, an egg, a shrimp, and a phone. The writings are next to illegible. The phone itself, connected to a machine, is silent. If we hack out the window, we'll see a leafless tree and a mist. From time to time, a twitching shadow can be seen there, a corrupted soul again. Another one can be seen if you open the clock, now going backwards. In a mirror on the door. It's me, the protagonist says. Since when are we playing as a corrupted soul? Only now? Since the fall? Or from the very beginning? There's also a blue cube inside the clock, the one mentioned in the notes. By using it, we may leave the memory once again. Only this time, all the cubes are open for us. Since this very moment, the words "the past isn't dead" and "all that you touch, you change" start finally making sense. If you regularly burn a candle in the earlier memories, only a stump will be left by the winter. If we make pipes leaking in summer, in fall there will be black mold that will cause black forest visions accompanied by reversed Harvey song. And in winter we'll be able to pick up an entire mushroom. If in spring we unroot a flower and replace it with a new seed, marking a new beginning, it will be growing over the years into a cactus and will bear a fruit in winter. And if we set Harvey free before she was killed, we won't see her in the cage ever again. Instead, she will return in winter 1981, and in gratitude she will bring a flower, one of those blooming in spring 1964. All these actions will bring us material for the funeral, the one that is to change the past according to the notes. After liquefying them and topping off the tanks, we finally launch the machine, still connected to the phone. a flower carried through time, a cactus fruit with unusual properties we have already seen, a black mushroom, somehow connected to the black forest that we see once again during grinding, and Prozac. The clock continues running backwards. We go back in time again. In fall, as well as in summer, the voice will ask to find them deeper in the past. Which is what we are doing. And in spring, a light beam comes out the receiver and strikes the protagonist. It turns out that the corrupted soul jumping through memories was Laura all the time. The room dissolves into the void. We go back to winter 1981 and approach a barely visible point, while cubes are floating around us. A familiar tree is gradually taking shape. Then a window in a big cube. And finally Laura, alive and happy. The end? Thanks for sitting through all of this. That was a recap of 3 first games concerning Laura's fate: Seasons, The Lake, and Harvey's Box. I hope that after describing them out loud, the story became a bit more clear. Well, I guess not really. So I already prepared a huge text, digesting not only all the theories that I know on every game separately, but also their possible interconnections. A bigger picture, if you will. So don't forget to subscribe. Leave thumbs up if you liked the video, and leave them down if you didn't. Any feedback is useful. If you already disagree with me on something, or maybe you already have a plot explanation of your own, don't just stay silent. Let me know in the comments below. You can also find me on Rusty Lake subreddit and the official Rusty Lake Discord server. The links are in the description below. Just write down your theory and I will answer it, especially if you leave a link to this video. I'm always glad to discuss, as well as sharing some lesser known theories. My name is Nowhere, and remember, question everything in Rusty Lake.